started on a bitter cold Sunday night in March at New York's bustling LaGuardia Airport.
It was supposed to take off originally around 7:30, but kept getting delayed, and it was 8 o'clock, and we were finally beginning to get on around 8:30. And again, saw the snow coming down. I thought, they're going to close this airport. There's no way they're going to let us take off. Well, as we got on, they de-iced one time, I remember that. And then just before we were ready to push back, the captain said he had requested one more time to have it de-iced again. And we got closer, and I thought, well, I guess they're not going to de-ice. It must be okay. Plus, other planes were taking off in front of us. So we got onto the runway, going all the way to the end. We lifted off about 20 to 30 feet in the air, and the plane listed pretty heavily, about 45 degrees to the left. At that point, I knew we had a problem. That was my first indication. But then it seemed like it leveled off, and I thought, we pulled it out. That's great. But then a second or so after that, we slammed into the ground.
An army of emergency vehicles descends on Flushing Bay. Dozens of rescue workers scramble down the icy banks.
The initial reports, which sounded like they were confirmed immediately, was that the plane had landed in the water and was on fire.
A ball of fire rolls through the plane's fuselage, engulfing both passengers and crew. Burning fuel spreads across the water.
Everybody was scared, everybody was screaming. So I just covered my face, and the explosion happened like 2 seats before me or 3 seats before me. The second thing I know, I was in the air, and I was under the water. Thought my seat was upside down.
My seat had been thrown out about 20 feet from the wreckage. Just as we came over that embankment, it threw my seat out and several other passengers too. And I was still strapped to my seat. So I undid my seatbelt, and it was about waist-high water, so I was able to stand up in it. And I remember looking back at the airplane, again about 20 feet away, and there's flames all over, and people are screaming, and people are yelling for help, and there was nothing I can do. They were in the airplane, and it was on fire, and there was no way for me to get in. I tried to find a way to get in, but there was no way to get in.
It was like a giant car wreck in the water. Steel was mangled, a lot of debris, people still trapped in the aircraft, and a rising tide.
Because there's so little space in the crushed plane, divers abandon their air tanks. They search underwater, holding their breath, feeling blindly in the darkness for survivors.
That's what I remember most, the water just rising and rising. Getting into the plane and working around inside the fuselage where you had half this plane was disintegrated, seats were mangled, cabinets were mangled, the plane had sharp edges, diesel, gas, aviation fuel was all over the place. It was not an easy operation. We had to use Hearst tools, hand tools, anything we can, and it all had to be worked off of boats.
Probably suffer from exposure.
In some instances, divers must be helped from the freezing water, suffering from exhaustion and exposure. Priests arrive on the scene to administer last rites. More and more bodies are brought to shore and placed in a makeshift morgue. Despite a broken shoulder and other injuries, crash survivor Morsi saves 2 lives.
If I don't have any problem, I go inside the water, look for people to survive, man. You know. It's very bad story, you know. It's very sad too, you know.
You have to go on and try to understand why you were spared, certainly have a new appreciation for life, and just kind of enjoy the sunshine a little bit more than I did before.
I have never been to an airplane crash in my career. I hope I don't go to another one. It was a disaster. I feel for the victims, and I feel for the survivors who will be remembering this for a long time. I'm glad I was there to give my service, but I hope I never have to do it again.
Due to the courageous efforts of rescue personnel, 24 of the 51 people aboard Flight 405 survived the disaster.